Friends, we are almost at the close of the month of November. I'm sure it was a good experience for you in this month. The weather is changing also, and we see already people coming out with their jackets, with some warm clothes, etc. I hope the Christmas also will be pleasant, not too cold, because the cold affects the people. And I also know that the poor people suffer more during the cold. They have no shelter. Many of them who are sleeping on the streets, perhaps they need some little cover. And so the cold affects everybody. Let me begin with a message that God has for us this week. Once again, it's a very simple one, but very, very thought-provoking. It's called the message of the talents that God gives us. The word talent in English means that a quality or perhaps a characteristic that one is endowed with. We say you are very talented, you are very much resourceful, you are a good singer, you are a good dancer. What a beautiful talent that you have perhaps in your games. We are seeing the World Cup, the T50 matches these days, the World Cup, and fortunately we say that many of our Indian players are very, very talented. They have not lost a single game up to now, and the finals is going to be on the 19th Sunday, which India has already secured its berth. Our beloved cricketer, Mr. Virat Kohli, has already scored 50 centuries. We say he is very talented. But biblically, the word talent, as we see in this gospel, in this parable, it is something worth in money, rich resources, and in fact one talent, what we are told in those times of the Jews and the Palestinians, perhaps 2000 years ago, one talent meant almost 20 years work, 20 years salary or wages of a worker, which means a big amount, something like lakhs of rupees given to somebody as one, perhaps an amount or installment as such. And so the gospel, as I said, is very simple. The landlord calls his servants because he's going for a journey or something, and he gives them 5, he gives them 2, he gives them 1. And therefore he tells them go. And it's understood that they have to make use of it and return. It's like a free sort of installment loan that is given to them, something that perhaps he gives them in order to benefit for himself and for them too. And so the 5 comes back after some time, and the landlord has come and says, here you have your 5 and 5 more which I have traded and made. The second one also brings the double of what is given to him. But the misery of the third one talent person, who he says, sir, I was very much scared of you. You reap when we are not sown at all. You are a hard man, and therefore I was scared of you, and I went and put it in the mud or perhaps in the soil, and I hid it. And the landlord is very angry. The master is very angry with him and says that how could you have wasted, because you have not used it and you have brought it back, and therefore he punishes him. So what does this parable mean to us? First of all, God is generous. God is generous. Just like the servants, we did not have to bother. He had his money, perhaps he was, each talent, as I said, it was worth lakhs of rupees, and 5 talents, 2 talents and 1 talent, etc. He was endowed with so much richness. He did not have to, there was no need for him to call and take a risk a big risk. Who knows if the 5 man never came back or the 2 man never came back. But God is generous. God is very, very generous with us. Every one of us is doted with some talent or other, some gift or other, and therefore God gives gifts. There's that beautiful saying, God gives and forgives. Man gets and forgets. Man gets and forgets. So therefore God is generous. Perhaps this is a moment for us in our life to analyze what we have been endowed with. What is this thing that God has given us out of His generosity, out of His broad-heartedness? And perhaps we will find many, many things. One of the meanings, or rather the interchange of the alphabets in the word talent means also latent. Latent means something's hidden. Perhaps it's not obvious to us immediately to say that. There are many people who are a bit negative to say that I have nothing, I am not endowed with anything, I don't want to come, I don't want to appear. They are so scared, as it were, that they don't want. The second one is the negative side of it. Many of us are one talent characteristics. One talent characters. What do I mean? The one talent man was so scared. He was so afraid. He didn't want to take a risk. He just wanted to go and hide it so as to give it back. Perhaps many of us are like that. God has given us many talents, but we don't want to use them. We are critical. There are certain persons perhaps endowed with so many things, but there's a small, perhaps something that troubles him, a small problem, a small incident, a small perhaps misbehavior from somebody, or maybe certain mistake that he himself makes or anything of that sort, that bogs us down. I am not going to get up, I am not going to walk, I am not going to do this, I am not going to help because I have a problem. Suddenly your problems have become so big that the bigger, what we call the eye or the aspect of God, what God has given, is forgotten. I say we are one talent characters. We just have buried somewhere what God has given us, the talent part. Thirdly, I say that this parable also tells us of the trust that the Master has in His servants and the trust that God has in each one of us. Very often it does happen that suddenly you're asked to take a responsibility and you wonder why, and you wonder how did was I ever entrusted with this? But then people do well. Sometimes they say, there is grace in the chair. You are suddenly appointed the president of something or secretary of something, or perhaps in your school you are a monitor. And then you realize that I am not worthy. I never have got that talent. But suddenly something in you sort of comes up. It's welling up of certain resources that are inside. And you see that ultimately you have succeeded because someone trusted in you. Perhaps your parents suddenly, your mother or father says, we are going for holidays, or perhaps going there, but take care of a house. You say, hey, how can I am very small, I can't be trusted, I am scared. But the parents are trusting you. And after a month when you come back, they see you not only smiling, but perhaps doing so many things. The trees are taken care of, the house is taken care of, the house is cleaned up. They have trusted you. Imagine what means God places His trust in you. Like the landlord who trusted his servants. Fourthly, I say that this parable also tells us about our responsibility. Our responsibility, our able to serve others, our ability to serve others. I love God's grace and our efforts to join hands so that every day is lived in a very special way. We can't be lazy. We can't waste our talents. I met a student who came to ask some help in the I think 11th or 12th standard, and most of our institutions had this cutout percentage of 50-60, and he was not qualifying, and ultimately it's as good as he went for a institution where he had to pay money in order to get the seat. The mother came with him, and the mother was very sad. Bishop, she said, my son was a very, very bright student. In the 9th standard, he almost sort of topped the class, but suddenly he collapsed in the 10th standard. I said, did he get sick? No, nothing happened to him. He just wasted his time. He was busy with his computer, with his mobile, and with his friends. And he started studying just 1 month or 2 months before the exams. It's not enough. And that is determining his future now. Of course, he has realized it, but too late. For many it happens to us. That we waste the trust that God gives us and we don't do anything. On the other hand, we can work hard. The first reading today, the reading is from Proverbs. It speaks of a woman. It speaks of a wife. And a woman who is active and industrious. She is active. She makes use of every small minute that she gets in order to do something for the house, something for the husband, something for the children, something to decorate her house. And the Bible calls her more precious than the jewels. A woman who is industrious, active. And fortunately, we have so many of them. In our Archdiocese, I'm so happy to say that the women are somehow coming up, and they are also effecting or creating ripples in their own family, in their own society, by their organization, by their being together. And so this woman that is referred in the book of Proverbs, she works with wool and flax. The wool, because perhaps she wants to stitch something for her children. She keeps herself completely busy. Her 2 minutes are there, she will do that. Something is put on the oven there, by the time it comes, she does something else. She keeps herself. Women are multitasked, they call it. And not only that, works with willing hands, she holds the spindle, so many things that she is doing. And therefore, it's also said that she opens her hands to the poor and the needy. So this is the responsibility, the work that we do. We have to keep ourselves busy. 5 into 5, 10 talents, 4 into 4, 8 talents, perhaps 2 into 2, 4 talents. And finally, that one man, he disappoints us all. He just wastes his time. Finally, we say that, I found this beautiful quotation somewhere. God gives gifts that we may gift ourselves. God gives us gifts. God gives us talent. So as that we also can be gifting ourselves to the others, helping the others. If God has given you strength, if God has given you muscles, if your God has given you brains, it's not only for yourself. God doesn't want only you to this one, but God wants to use it, you to use it for the sake of others. So therefore God gives us gifts so that we ourselves can be gifts to the others. It's a beautiful thought. So my dear friends, I am very happy to leave these thoughts before you, just to say in short, first of all, to say that God is generous. God is generous, and God has been generous with you and me. Secondly, many of us, perhaps we have disappointed God because we are one talent characters. The one talent man goes and hides it, keeps it, and he waits for the master to come to give it. Thirdly, the trust that God puts in each one of us. God trusts us. Our superiors trust us. Our parents trust us. And therefore we should not waste that trust element, that trust deposit that is kept with us. Fourthly, as I said, allow God's grace and our efforts to be combined. So keep yourself busy, keep yourself always doing, keep yourself producing. Of course, sometimes you may fail. Sometimes, it's a risk. The 5 became 5 more talents, but it could have been that they could have lost also, because some business also. But risk is a risk, and it's worth taking a risk. And finally, God gives gifts that we may gift ourselves. So I think these are beautiful reflections that we have on this Sunday, and I ask you to think over them, reflect over them, and examine your own life, your family, your business, and many other things that God has endowed you with. I now come to another important, I would say, event, or perhaps a small celebration that we have among ourselves, not much noted. World doesn't celebrate it. And what is it? The World Day of the Poor. Pope Francis, ever since he became the Supreme Pontiff, his heart goes out to the poor. And so in the year 2017, he established a day, what we said, we have to think of ourselves, and perhaps we have to join the poor also in what he called this World Day of the Poor. And every year, this day is celebrated on the 33rd Sunday of the year, which means just one day before the feast of Christ the King. Perhaps Pope's idea to combine these two things distantly, the poor as good as kings, and we can make them kings by our own involving in their life in some way. And so the last Sunday, the Sunday that closes the liturgical year, is declared as the World Day of the Poor for us, especially in Christians, and I have requested our priests to, in some way, not only tell the people about the poor, but also ask, let us make an effort to reach out to the poor. The Holy Father says, whenever we encounter a poor person, we cannot look away, for that would prevent us from encountering the face of Lord Jesus. So when you see a poor, just don't look away, because as good as you are making an effort not to see the face of Christ in the poor. A great river of poverty is traversing our cities and swelling to the point of overflowing. It seems to overwhelm us. So great are the needs of our brothers and sisters who plead for help, support, and solidarity. So the Pope speaks the language of the poor. He knows their problems. He knows their difficulties, and says the world is just overflowing with this river of poverty. It's the rich who become richer, the poor who are just rotting. And what are the reasons of this one? The reasons are not very difficult to find. Of course, it could be the laziness of these people who don't work hard and just want to beg. Or it could be perhaps something that is misfortune that they have brought upon themselves in some way. A person who drinks and makes himself and drags his family to poverty. Surely but the world in general is also responsible for poverty. And the Holy Father says perhaps there are so many reasons. The world caught up in a war, maddening war. What does war give to us? It just gives us a show of our arms, that we shoot each other, we kill each other, we destroy the things. We have seen the latest of what we call the Jews, the fight between the Jews, the Hamas, the Palestinians, the Ukrainians. What has got? It is just destruction. And so poverty is caused. The poverty is also caused situations of what we call the unhealthy treatment of the poor, human trafficking, people caught in situations of difficulties. All these contribute to the poverty. And the Holy Father has chosen a beautiful sentence from the book of Tobias. It says, do not turn away your face from anyone who is poor. That's the saying from the book of Tobias, And Tobias was a kind person, a generous person who always wanted to help in spite of his own personal misery that he had. And he teaches his son Tobit also to do the same. I found a beautiful quotation of Saint Basil about poverty. I just read out to you because we are closing up upon Christmas, and Christmas is a feast of joy, of celebration, of what we call light and sounds and the sparkles. But Christmas is also a feast of the poor. And perhaps this sentence, this quotation from Basil is very much characteristic of our attitude, at the same time how the poor suffer. So St. Basil says, the bread which you do not use is the bread of the hungry. The garment hanging in your wardrobe is the garment of him who is naked. The shoes that you do not wear are the shoes of the one who is barefoot. The money that you keep locked away is the money of the poor. The acts of charity that you do not perform are so many injustices that you commit. What St. Basil says is, perhaps doing is something what we call we give, but not giving is also wrong, because you are depriving a certain person of what he should have had, and that's in your body, that's on your plate, that's in your, perhaps in your treasury, and you are not using it. You are not using it. The food that you perhaps throw away, you are not using it, you are just throwing it away, but it may be useful, it may belong to somebody. The clothes that you are not wearing, they are just in the hangers. Sometimes some of our cupboards and the cupboards are full of our clothes. You are not using it. Basil says perhaps it's the garment of those who are naked. The shoes that you don't wear, they belong to the one who is barefoot. Perhaps this is the way St. Basil thinks of it. And let me just make a reference also to the encyclical of Pope John the 23rd. It's called Pacem in Terris. It's the 60th year, and Pope John 23rd, like the present Pope and the other popes in the past, was always, his heart went out to the poor. He was the first one who spoke about the right of food, the right of clothing, shelter, medical care, and rest for the poor. So my dear friends, let us be aware of this Sunday that is very specially celebrated in order to show our solidarity with the poor. Number 3, I speak about appeal to support the Manipur children's education. I have said in the past that Bangalore has opened his arms, has opened his heart, as it were, to the displaced persons and children, especially from Manipur. They have come here by train, they have come here some by flight, some have taken days together, and it's not just about 2-3 months back since they have been coming, and we have absorbed them in many of our schools. Almost 24 institutions in the city of Bangalore have taken, most of them run by the religious also. They have taken the children in different classes, different colleges, different standards, and also provided accommodation for them. And our only condition has been to them is that we will give it freely to them. We will not be charging them. We will not be expecting any money from them. But then I can understand our Archdiocese also has hosted about more than 150 children in different institutions of our Archdiocese, and the other religious also have taken them. Slowly we are feeling what we call the tugs of the expenses that we have to have for them every day, to give them food, clothing, books, uniform, so many other things. The food itself comes a lot, and so we make an appeal. You can help us in kind also, perhaps some ration that you can send to the different hostels where the children are there, and perhaps some uniform, or perhaps books, or money that you can give also, which might be useful for our children. I also someone told me the children will be missing Christmas this year in their own homes. The Manipuri children are lively. They just burst into a song. Their dance and the dance steps are so natural. And surely I say that they will miss Christmas this year. They can't go back. They will have to be here. And perhaps they will be just thinking about their homes and their people that they have left behind. Some of them are also lost and dead because of the violence that took place. And so someone told me, why not make the children happy by giving them a Christmas gift? A Christmas gift. I would be happy if you can support us. I also make an appeal for what's called the Asha Education Sponsorship Program in our Archdiocese. At Christmas time, we make an appeal. As you know, the Asha Trust of our Archdiocese is educating the children, the poorest of the poor. And just now we have a list of 1,000 children whom we are helping. We originally started with the help and support that was given us by the diocese, by a diocese in Czech Republic. And this diocese helped us in the beginning, but now slowly they are withdrawing because they also have problems of recession, unemployment, etc. There are just about 500 left. It was earlier about 2,500. Almost 3,000 children will be helped by that country. But now it's just 500. And we have another 500 perhaps from our own city of Bangalore, people who have been generously giving. But the children are much more. We have about 3,000 children on our list to be helped. And we will not be able to do it unless someone helps us and supports us. Perhaps certain companies that can take up at least 50, 100, 200 sponsorships, or perhaps even families that can do. And we make an appeal to the time of Christmas, a gift from you for about 20,000 rupees will help for 1 year one child to be educated in our school with uniform, with books and with other things. Most of our schools also have very little fees to be paid because we have to pay the teachers, but that's the minimum that we expect. So if you are generous enough at Christmas time to adopt or to enter into collaborate with our children's sponsorship program, we will be very grateful to you. You see the placard where you can give your help and support. The Archdiocese also every year at Christmas tries to reach out at least 1,000 families in the Archdiocese, the poorest of the poor, who cannot celebrate Christmas. For them, Christmas is another luxury that they can't afford. But we as Christians, can we have the heart, as St. Basil himself said, to have what is called the extravagance of the Christmas season, banging and noise and voices and wasting of food and this thing. Can we ever think of it? There are so many families perhaps whom we can support. And therefore we normally used to send during Christmas time a small packet with a ration for the family for a few days, 2-3 days, perhaps some little things, a cake, some toys for the children. We used to pack every year and send it to the families, 1,000 families. This year we find ourselves very much constrained because we have taken up the burden of the Manipuri children, but I still don't want to disappoint those families who may be expecting even this year something that comes from the Archdiocese to make them happy and to celebrate Christmas. So my dear friends, I depend on you. I give you the placard wherein our PMSS is, we have an account for which we have the 12A, I think 80G also, and so the funds that you give in order to be distributed for the poor will be receipted and we will surely send them in your name. Please be generous and help us to help or to bless our people at Christmas time. The Archdiocese has just brought out the Ordo, a picture of which you see on the screen. It's the new Ordo, and Ordo means the order of the dates, the feasts, the readings, etc. that are used in our liturgy. Our Archdiocesan Ordo is quite popular. There are many religious, there are many families that want to use it, and at the same time, outside the diocese, there are many people who also want it. And so since it's out for sale, and surely every family is recommended to have it, so that you can do the readings, you can take these readings and read them at the time of your supper or before the rosary, after the rosary, etc. And at the same time, you know the flow of the feasts or the calendar of the church. This Sunday is the 33rd Sunday. That's especially dedicated for the poor. The next Sunday is the Christ the King Sunday, and perhaps the Advent season, the Lenten season, all these things are clearly there. So kindly see if you can buy a copy of the Ordo. It costs about 100 rupees. It's available not only in our Archbishop's house but also in the religious stalls all over Bangalore. We have had the good news of inauguration of a church in Kannuru. You know, Kannuru is on the airport road near Bangalore, and this church foundation was laid in 2017 by Archbishop Bernard, our Archbishop Emeritus, and the works were going on during the time of the COVID. The work was almost stopped, and we also were not much. The resources were less, and therefore I requested the people to contribute a little, and the people contributed a lot. And the church is finally completed, and we inaugurated this church on 14th of November, the Children's Day. Archbishop Emeritus himself, Archbishop Emeritus Bernard Morris himself was here, and he was so happy to see what he had started, reaching the finality as such, and the people also were very happy. The parish is run at present by the Dominican Fathers, and we are grateful for the Dominican Fathers for taking this responsibility of also putting up, supervising the church, collecting the funds, etc. And the church has been inaugurated. The present parish priest is Father Prakash Menezes, who has completed this work, and therefore I congratulate the people of the parishioners of Kannur. The church is named as the Church of Our Lady of Providence. The Church of Our Lady of Providence, a beautiful name. And in fact, the sisters who are staying close by, it's their congregation name, Congregation of the Sisters of Our Lady of Providence, and that's the name that we have retained for the church also. As I said, it's a beautiful name, beautiful theme also, that Mother Mary takes care, that God takes care of us, that God doesn't abandon us. And Mary is the face of this loving mercy and compassion of God. I hope you make a visit to this church and see that beautiful picture of Mother Mary there. It makes us think that Mother Mary will never abandon us. You know, we have that beautiful hymn, "Be with us, Mary, along the way." Mary is always along the way. And therefore, I wish once again the parishioners of Kannur and the clergy, the priests who are there, I wish them very much God's blessing as they make use of the church and the hall and the surroundings. I have another piece of good news for you. The visit of Cardinal Michael Cherney. He is a Jesuit cardinal and prefect of the congregation, what's called the dicastery, for promoting integral human development. You know, under him, under his dicastery comes many things: environment, charity, migrants, the development, so many things come under him. And so this cardinal is visiting Bangalore from 20th to 22nd. Basically, he is coming for a seminar, or perhaps a big assembly that has been organized at Dharmaram College on the topic of environment. Bishop Alvin de Silva is the one chairman of the Environment Commission in the CBCI level, and he has organized this, for which Cardinal Michael Cherney will be coming, and perhaps our own Cardinal Gracious, perhaps Cardinal Philip Neri, all the other dignitaries also will be there. So the Cardinal will be for 2 days in our Archdiocese, and I have thought of, he is also in charge of migrants. So perhaps we'll look forward for an occasion where he can meet at least some migrants, the Manipuri children, that are in our diocese. We will try to arrange a meeting for them with the cardinal, so the cardinal sees firsthand how the migrants are taken care of in our Archdiocese. So I wish you well, my dear friends. Have a good week ahead.